Before the Roman Empire, there was the Roman Republic, and before that, the Roman Kingdom. However, the foundations of Rome were not actually laid here. It all started in an ancient city called Alba Longa, about 25 kilometers away from modern-day Rome. It was right there, in the year 771 BC, that King Numitor of Alba Longa was enjoying his reign on the balcony of his palace when his brother Amulius suddenly appeared out of nowhere, pushed him off the balcony, deposed him from the throne, and forced him into what you could call a mandatory retirement. Right at that moment, Amulius's soldiers, aiming to secure the newly minted king's throne, slaughtered every single one of Numitor's children who could possibly inherit the crown. Only Numitor's daughter Silvia managed to escape this bloody purge with her life. To ensure the lineage would stop dead in its tracks, Amulius condemned Silvia to the Vestal Virgin priesthood, a role where having children was strictly forbidden. Just as Amulius was celebrating, thinking, "Well, I've eliminated that threat too," a completely unexpected supernatural event took place. Silvia got pregnant. Now don't let Jesus Christ pop into your head just yet. His time is still a long way off. But the famous brothers Romulus and Remus, who form the very roots of Rome, were the fruits of this exact miracle. Following what was probably a highly chaotic birth and a pretty bizarre baby shower, next up is that famous family drama. Hey, how on earth did you get pregnant while being a nun? Mars, the god of war, forced his way into my bed. Mars? That is the absolute worst excuse I've ever heard in my life. It's not an excuse, it is literally a myth. What? Whether Amulius bought into this story or not, he now had a much cuter but absolutely massive problem on his hands. Newborn twin boys, the rightful heirs to the throne. His seat was shaking violently. It was the exact moment to say, I'd better call Harvey Specter. Hi, I'm Harvey Specter. Did you know that you have rights? The Constitution says you do. Then the scene that absolutely everyone knows by heart takes place. The babies are stuffed into a basket and cast adrift on the river's current. The basket washes ashore and the twins tumble out onto the freezing wet sand. And sand, as we know, is coarse and gets everywhere. Romulus, in a deeply charismatic and smooth voice, says, "We've reached the end of the line." Remus replies, "Exactly, brother. Sharing the same womb with you was a great honor." Just when they think they're about to kick the bucket, a she-wolf bursts out of the bushes and starts nursing our boys. All right, this story literally just turned into a holy scripture parable. A virgin mother, infanticide, and twins raised on wolf milk. What's next? The Tower of Babel? Chronologically, yes, but message received. Of course, all of this is just a legend. Maybe it happened, or maybe it's completely made up. But it is of vital importance to the birth of Rome, which is exactly the topic we are diving into right now. So shut your mouth, sit back, and enjoy this free show. Besides, who even are you? Beat it. Long story short, the kids, looked after by the wolf for a while, grow up and thrive. And they become ridiculously, absurdly strong. Naturally, living on a protein bomb like wolf milk turns a human being into a mythological bodybuilder, straight out of an ancient JoJo episode. One day, while they are flexing their muscles in the woods and doing whatever it is that wild demigod teenagers do, a shepherd stumbles upon them. He adopts the twins and presumably teaches them how to talk, because up until that point they were living like nothing but furry monsters. As a result, the twins evolve into two tall, massive, total troublemakers. One day, our twins get into a massive brawl with a bunch of thugs working for, guess who? King Amulius's guards. Right in the middle of that scuffle, they come face to face with the shocking truth. It turns out they aren't just random jungle kids. They are the long-lost princes of Alba Longa. the very rightful heirs Amulius had tried to sacrifice to the raging waters of the river back in the day. Naturally, our boys decide to embark on a visionary adventure. They march straight to Alba Longa, whip the local populace into a frenzy, and shout dramatic speeches left and right along the lines of, "Please subscribe to the Historically channel." Taking the city folk along with them, they dethrone Uncle Amulius and restore their grandfather, Numitor, back to the throne. The old man becomes king once again. There are cheers everywhere, absolute chaos, flowers, cries of joy. Everyone is happy except for one duo, Romulus and Remus. Because the boys have officially developed a taste for this military/commander lifestyle. Consequently, they decide to venture a bit further out and establish their own kingdom. Near the Tiber River, a spectacular location catches their eye. A magnificent view, 7 hills, flawless strategic vantage points, and a small blacksmith village. Up to this point, everything is running smoothly. But this is a Roman tale, which means disaster is always right around the corner. This time they get into a massive, hair-pulling feud over exactly where to build the city. Let's build it on the Palatine Hill. No, the Aventine is better. My territory could beat up your territory. No, mine. Never. Impossible. And just like that, the foundations of the mighty Rome are sacrificed to a brotherly squabble that could have been resolved with a simple coin toss. But hold on, this is ancient Italy. Things don't get resolved that civilly around here. Let's ask the gods for a sign, they say. The contest is simple. Whoever spots more birds in the sky wins divine approval. Remus says, "I counted 6 birds." Romulus fires back, "Fantastic, I saw 12. You definitely cheated, but the gods clearly favor me more, brother." "Not even close." Without wasting any time, Romulus begins laying down a small wall. Even if his brother won't lift a finger to help, he's going to build this city entirely on his own. Remus, being a certified older brother provocateur, hops right over the wall just to mock him. "Oh my God, I've just infiltrated your ultra-secure metropolis, brother. What are you going to do? Call the cops? Your city is an absolute joke." Romulus goes into a complete, "You'll only build an empire over my dead body" mode and slaughters Remus on the spot. And there you have it, the bloody beginning of Rome. Historical Extra Long Facts, Episode 16. So, Romulus finally bagged the crown, but at that moment, the place called Rome was basically a homeless camp. To attract people, he declares it a sanctuary city. Not the medical kind, mind you, but a place where any law-evading fugitive can seek asylum. Naturally, Rome fills up instantly. Runaway slaves, people drowning in debt, exiles, goat thieves, people who practically live like goats, hardened criminals, and probably a few lost tourists. Romulus looks at this chaotic crowd and says, "Magnificent, a true metropolis." However, there is a gaping flaw. Rome has food, it has hills, walls, a ton of shady characters, and even a king, but the number of women to keep the population going is exactly 0. "Oh, really? Is that so?" Shut up. Our guys immediately organize a massive festival and invite their neighbors, the Sabines. "Come join the celebration, bring the whole family, snacks are on us." I mean, who would turn down a free housewarming party? The Sabines roll up and the atmosphere gets lively. But right in the middle of the party, Romulus gives a secret signal, and the Romans snatch and kidnap every single Sabine woman in sight. Rome literally solves its demographic gender crisis with an 8th century BC style Tinder kidnapping operation. Father Mars would have been proud. The Sabine men wake up the next morning nursing the hangover of a lifetime and completely lose their minds. They launch an immediate counterattack, obviously. And just 3 years after the birth of the city, the first official Roman war breaks out. Round of applause for Rome. Right at that moment, the Sabine women charge right into the middle of the two armies and wail, "Cut it out! Let's not have our new husbands butcher our old families. Stop this childish nonsense, merge the kingdoms, and move on with your lives." And it happens exactly as they say. The Sabines and the Romans melt into a single people. You can only imagine how incredibly awkward the atmosphere must have been at the family dinner table that night. From this turning point onward, Rome burns through 6 more kings. We still have over 1,000 years of history ahead of us, so I'm going to kick things into high gear, but I won't skip the crucial details. The first king is, of course, our Romulus. He establishes the Senate, pulls off every wild stunt imaginable, and then vanishes into thin air during a storm. The Romans claim he ascended into heaven, but in all likelihood he probably just tripped somewhere and died. The second king is an old man of Sabine descent. He lays the groundwork for the Roman religion, builds temples, and passes away peacefully, without picking a fight with anyone. The third king is the exact polar opposite of his predecessor. Deciding that religion is pretty cringe, fighting is way cooler. He wipes Alba Longa off the map, assimilates its people, and ultimately gets struck down after angering the gods a bit too much. The fourth king is half Sabine, half Roman. He revives religion, forcibly expands the borders, and paves the city with a dungeon, sports grounds, bridges, and roads. The next king builds a massive sewage network and gains an insane amount of power, but his political rivals cut his ticket short. His succeeding successor also gets taken down after abusing his power a bit too much. Supposedly he built a wall, but it wasn't enough to stop the Mexicans. The seventh king is such a cursed and tyrannical tyrant that the Roman public kicks the guy out of the city, body, and soul. Thus, the era of monarchy ends, and the republic takes the stage. There is no longer a single king. Instead, there are 2 consuls who possess king-like powers, but aren't kings, can veto each other, and change every single year. I am completely certain this will be a highly stable and wonderful system. Let's see. Oh my God, everything is on fire. So, why did this Rome become so utterly war-crazed? The issue isn't just that the first king's dad was the god of war. Back in the day, the Gauls marched right into Rome out of nowhere, pillaged the city, burned it down, chilled out as if they were pitching a campsite, and finally took off after extorting a massive gold ransom. This right here is Rome's villain origin story. The Romans swear we will never be subjected to this humiliation ever again, and adopt an ultra-militaristic mindset. From now on, anything not bolted to the ground will be conquered. Latin neighbors, mountain tribes, Greek colonies, everyone gets swallowed up in one bite. But the truly massive bite comes from the south. Carthage. A Devasa navy, money galore, a spectacular city, and elephants. The exact kind of neighbor Rome absolutely could not stand, and the Punic Wars kick off. In the first round, Rome says, "We need that island," while Carthage mocks them, saying, "But you don't even have a navy." Does Rome back down? They copy Carthage's ships stone by stone, build a navy from scratch, and win the match. The second round is pure chaos. A madman named Hannibal crosses the Alps with 50,000 soldiers and 37 elephants, tearing Rome to shreds for years. But at the end of the day, Rome wins, because they are Rome. In the third round, they say, "The fact that Carthage is still sitting on the map is seriously bothering my eyes," and completely wipe the city off the face of the earth, turning everyone into a slave. From this point on, Rome turns into an empire completely addicted to expansion. Spain, North Africa, Greece, Turkey, Gaul. They subjugate 10% of humanity, enslave 2%, and wipe entire civilizations from history just to get revenge for a Gaulish raid that happened 330 years prior. Then Julius Caesar steps onto the stage. Taking a small army with him, he dives into Gaul and completely turns the place upside down. France, Belgium, Germany. He even pops over to England just to wave hello. As he's about to return to Rome, the Senate panics and orders him to disband his army and come to the city completely alone. Caesar draws the line, rejects the order, and marches on the capital with his army. The Senate immediately scatters like a flock of birds. Of course, the business doesn't end there. He slaps down all his rivals one by one and sits in the first dictatorship seat in 500 years. Along the way, he doesn't miss the chance to hang out with Cleopatra. By the end of 4 years, the Republic is entirely under his control. Half the Senate practically worships the man, while the other half is counting down the days to end his life with 23 stab wounds. Give credit where credit is due. Caesar wasn't actually a bad figure. He revised the calendar. The month of July isn't named after him for nothing. Cut taxes down, wiped away debts, expanded the scope of citizenship, rebuilt the city, distributed land to veterans and free grain to the poor, and tried to keep the army under tight control. But when he gathered all the powers in his inventory like Pokemon, the Senate panicked, thinking, "This guy is literally becoming a king," and gutted him right inside the Senate building. A total pack of fools, because except for the senators, everyone in the country adored Caesar. Following Caesar, Mark Antony, Octavian, and an extra setup, a 3-man rule, triumvirate. Antony falls head over heels for Cleopatra and moves to Egypt. Octavian flies a piece of fake news to the Roman public, claiming, "This guy is going to move the capital to Egypt," manages to manipulate everyone, completely lays waste to Egypt, and the lover pair flees and dies. The field is left entirely to Octavian. The man declares himself emperor and takes the title Augustus. In the year 27 BC, the Roman Empire is officially born. Augustus is truly an absolute genius. He transforms the army entirely into a professional standing force. He binds the soldiers to a 20-year service requirement, a regular salary, and retirement rights. By doing so, he prevents ambitious generals from using armies as their own personal property. In his hands are 25 to 30 legions, meaning 150,000 professional soldiers, and an equal number of auxiliary units. He encases the borders in what is practically a suit of steel armor. Spain is completely brought to its knees. The Alps are conquered, rebellions in the Balkans are brutally crushed, and the Danube River is made the natural border. In the east, without ever entering a war with Parthia, he wins back the lost standards entirely through diplomatic maneuvers. Of course, the wars haven't completely ground to a halt. The legions along the Rhine and Danube lines are constantly on high alert, and the action never stops. We're in the year 9 AD. General Varus is marching into Germania with his legions. However, waiting for them is Arminius, a man who was once Rome's dearest ally, but is now lying in ambush. In the pitch-black depths of the Teutoburg forest, 3 elite Roman legions are completely wiped off the map. 20,000 professional soldiers lose their lives right then and there. Here is the secret. Arminius knows Rome from the inside out. He knows all its weak points by heart. The Romans think that every single tribe on earth is dying to become a Roman subject, but for Arminius, the Roman yoke is literally the feeling of suffocation. Constant taxes, absolute submission, and the gradual destruction of local culture. He cons Varus spectacularly and tears him to pieces in the dense woods. Varus commits suicide out of sheer shame, and the numbers of those ill-fated legions are never written in the army registers ever again. Augustus definitively drops his obsession with conquering Germania, and the Rhine River becomes the definitive border. This strategic decision will dictate the borders of European geography for centuries to come. In the year 14 AD, Augustus closes his eyes to the world, and Tiberius takes the seat. The man is talented, no doubt, but he is a complete antisocial who suspects everyone and literally detests the common people. He was practically dragged kicking and screaming into the emperorship, so he finds a remedy by escaping to his villa on the island of Capri and running the state via remote control. Naturally, with the field left wide open, the Praetorian Guards set themselves up at the center of the state, and their commanders gain an insane amount of authority. Corruption and bribery are rampant. Right during these years, Jesus is crucified in the province of Judea. However, to the massive Roman bureaucracy, this event is nothing more than a routine, insignificant local police matter in a remote province. When Tiberius passes away in 37 AD, the guards place Caligula on the throne this time. When Caligula displays massive arrogance and ticks off the guards, the men gut him on the spot and choose Claudius instead. From this milestone onward, emperors are no longer appointed by the Senate or the public, but directly by the soldiers. By a stroke of luck, Claudius turns out to be a solid figure. He expands the borders and stabilizes the administrative machinery. But his successor, Nero, is a complete image-obsessed, reckless individual. While the mighty Rome is burning in flames, he just idles away the time. Ultimately, the Senate and the army lose all faith in the man. Once the guards pull their protection as well, Nero flees and ends his own life. In the year 68 AD, the glorious Julius Caesar dynasty officially comes to an end. The following year, 69 AD, witnesses a total circus known to history as the Year of the Four Emperors. Armies in 4 different provinces declare 4 separate men as emperor. One is executed, another is overthrown in a coup, and a third can barely sit in the seat for a few months. At the end of the day, Vespasian, who possesses the most formidable military force, emerges victorious. He forcibly establishes state order and leaves the empire to his sons as an inheritance. From this moment on, even the deaf sultan knows the plain truth. He who controls the army controls Rome. Over the succeeding century, emperors drop one by one like flies. In 117 AD, under Trajan's rule, the empire reaches its absolute peak geographically. Romania, Jordan, and Armenia are conquered. But by the time we reach 193 AD, the Praetorian Guards hit a new low in shamelessness and literally put the entire empire up for sale via an open auction. The highest bidder, Didius Julianus, can only stay in the seat for a mere 66 days before they cut his ticket. In the 3rd century, Christianity spreads like wildfire, making the Roman aristocracy highly uncomfortable. Besides, the 3rd century is a complete era of chaos. Emperors change on a weekly basis, plagues break out, inflation skyrockets, the Germanic tribes press hard from the west, and the Persians strike from the east. The empire is right on the verge of breaking apart. An emperor finds a cure for this dire situation with Tetrarchy, meaning a 4-man ruling model. 2 senior Augusti, 2 young Caesars. Once the emperors move their residences to the border fortifications, the ancient capital Rome is completely abandoned. In fact, the genius founder of this system packs up his things, retires, and occupies himself with growing cabbages in the countryside. Afterwards, Constantine reunites the administration under a single fist, but he doesn't look back at Rome either. He builds Constantinople from scratch, a city heavily steeped in Christian culture, marking the definitive end of paganism. The cultural and administrative chasm between East and West is now absolute. In 395 AD, the last single emperor divides the state between his 2 sons, and the administrations part ways completely. The Western Roman Empire grows weaker by the day. In 410 AD, the Visigoths sack Rome, and in 455 AD, the Vandals plunder the city. Finally, in the year 476 AD, the last Roman emperor, little Romulus Augustus, is ousted from his post by a Germanic general telling him, "All right, kiddo, hand over that crown." And the Western Roman Empire is buried in the dusty pages of history. There is no epic, massive final battle. It is simply a case of total imperial exhaustion. The real culprit behind this collapse, however, is uncontrolled waves of migration. The Huns, the Goths, the Vandals. Long ago, from the battlefield death of a mighty emperor at Adrianople, this bitter lesson had been learned. If you take an entire nation inside your borders and fail to keep them under control, you end up importing a civil war with your own hands. While the West collapses entirely, the East manages to survive for another 1,000 years under the brand name Byzantium. But that is the topic of a completely different video. Those guys hold out until the Ottomans march in and pull the plug in 1453.